Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are again reading from the chapter entitled Yamaraj Instructs His Messengers. This is chapter 3 in the 6th canto. Etavan eva lokesmin Pungsang dharma parasmrita Bhakti yogo bhagavati Tanama grahanadibhi Etavan eva lokesmin Pungsang dharma parasmritaha Bhakti yogo bhagavati Tanama grahanadibhi. Please chant. Mothers, Etavan, this much. Eva, indeed. Loke asmin, in this material world. Pungsang, of the living entities. Dharma, the religious principles. Para, transcendental. Smrita, recognized. Bhakti yoga, Bhakti yoga, or devotional service. Bhagavati, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not to the demigods. Tat, his. Nama, of the holy name. Grahana adibihi, beginning with chanting. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: devotional service, beginning with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, is the ultimate religious principle for the living entity in human society. Please repeat. Devotional service, beginning with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, is the ultimate religious principle for the living entity in human society. Purport. As stated in the previous verse, Dharmam Bhagavatam, real religious principles are Bhagavat Dharma, the principles described in Srimad Bhagavatam itself or in Bhagavad Gita, the preliminary study of the Bhagavatam. What are these principles? The Bhagavatam says, Dharma prajito kaitavatra. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there are no cheating religious systems. Everything in the Bhagavatam is directly connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhagavatam further says, Savai pungsang paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhoksiche. The supreme religion is that which teaches its followers how to love the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond the reach of experimental knowledge. Such a religious system begins with ta nama grahana, chanting of the holy name of the Lord, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam. After chanting the holy name of the Lord and dancing in ecstasy, one gradually sees the form of the Lord, the pastimes of the Lord, and the transcendental qualities of the Lord. This way, one fully understands the situation of the personality of Godhead. One can come to this understanding of the Lord, how he descends into the material world, how he takes his births, and what activities he performs, but one can know this only by executing devotional service. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktyamam abhijanati. Simply by devotional service, one can understand everything about the Supreme Lord. If one fortunately understands the Supreme Lord in this way, the result is tyakta deham punarjanma naiti. After giving up this material body, he no longer has to take birth in this material world. Instead, he returns home back to Godhead. That is the ultimate perfection. Therefore, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 8:15, Mam upetya punarjanma dhukalayam ashashwatam napnuvanti mahatmanaha samsiddhim paramam gataha. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Gena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So of course we have no realization, but we pray that the blessings of the devotees will be able to speak something of value for Srila Prabhupada's pleasure. So actually, throughout the Bhagavatam, two things are proclaimed within Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the importance of the chanting of the holy name and devotional service to the Lord. All throughout the Bhagavatam, from beginning to end, you'll see that this is the common thread, explaining the power of the holy name and the process of devotional service. And ultimately, there is no difference between the chanting of the holy name and devotional service. The chanting of Hare Krishna is devotional service, and it allows one to perform devotional service. And it ultimately is the highest service. It is the means, it is the process, and it is the goal. It is everything. And I thought, before we would begin, since the theme is the holy name, probably the most important thing written in our canon, more important than anything written by anyone, is this address. It's so simple yet so profound. Prabhupada, when the first album was produced in 1966, when Srila Prabhupada came to America, he produced this Happening album. And on this album there was chanting, and then Prabhupada gave an address explaining the Maha Mantra. And it's one of the most wonderful things that you'll ever read. It is so profound. And Prabhupada didn't know how long that he would have in America. He'd say that, the time is already given. So within this explanation of the Maha Mantra, it contains everything. It's an extremely amazing bit of transcendental literature. Prabhupada explains even that Hare in the Maha Mantra refers to Srimati Radharani. And this is to hippies and non-vegetarians, very primitive Americans in the late 60s, and Prabhupada is giving the highest understanding. So I just wanted to read it. And you can listen and see that everything is contained within this explanation of the Maha Mantra. This transcendental vibration established by the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, is the sublime method of reviving our Krishna consciousness. As living spirit souls, we are all originally Krishna conscious entities, but due to our association with matter from time immemorial, our consciousness is now polluted by the material atmosphere. This material matter is called Maya, or illusion. And what is this illusion? The illusion is that we are trying to be lords of material nature when actually we are under the grip of her stringent laws. When a servant tries to imitate the all-powerful master, this is called illusion. In this polluted concept of life, we are all trying to exploit the resources of material nature, but actually we are becoming more and more entangled in her complexities. Therefore, although the illusory struggle against material nature can be stopped at once by the revival of our Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is not an artificial imposition on the mind. It is the consciousness and original energy of the living entity. When we hear the transcendental vibration, the consciousness is revived. And that is the process recommended for this age by authorities. By practical experience also, one can perceive that the chanting of this Maha Mantra, or great chanting of deliverance, at once one can feel transcendental ecstasy coming through from the spiritual strata. And when one is factually on the plane of spiritual understanding, surpassing the stages of the senses, mind, and intelligence, one is situated on the transcendental plane. This chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is directly enacted from the spiritual platform, and thus this sound vibration surpasses all lower strata of consciousness, namely sensual, mental, and intellectual. There is no need, therefore, to understand the language of the mantra, nor is there any need for mental speculation or an intellectual adjustment for chanting this Maha Mantra. It springs automatically from the spiritual platform, and as such, anyone can take part in the chanting without any previous qualification and dance in ecstasy. We have seen practically even a child can take part in the chanting, or even a dog. Of course, for one who is too entangled, it takes a little more time to come to the standard point. When the mantra is chanted by a pure devotee of the Lord, it has the greatest efficacy on the hearers, and as such, this chanting should be heard from the lips of a pure devotee of the Lord so that immediate effects can be achieved. As far as possible, chanting from the lips of a non-devotee should be avoided, as milk touched by the lips of a serpent has poisonous effect. The word Hara is the form of addressing the energy of the Lord, and the words Krishna and Rama are addressing the Lord himself. Both Krishna and Rama mean the supreme pleasure, and Hara is the supreme pleasure energy of the Lord changed to Hare in the vocative form. The supreme pleasure energy of the Lord helps us to reach the Lord. The material energy called Maya is also one of the multi-energy of the Lord's. And we as living entities are also energy, marginal energy of the Lord. The living entities are described as superior to material energy. When the superior energy is in contact with inferior energy, an incompatible situation arises. But when the superior marginal energy is in contact with superior energy, called Hara, the living entity is established in his happy, normal condition. These three words, namely Hare, Krishna, and Rama, are transcendental seeds of the Maha Mantra. The chanting is a spiritual call for the Lord and his internal energy, Hara, to give protection to the conditioned soul. This chanting is exactly like the genuine cry of a child for its mother. Mother Hara helps the devotee achieve the grace of the Supreme Father, Hari, or Krishna, and the Lord reveals himself to that devotee who chants this mantra sincerely. No other means of spiritualization, therefore, is as effective in this age as the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's so wonderful. No matter how many times you hear it, it's so wonderful, so sublime. Prabhupada just gets right to the point. It contains everything. Everything is there in a 5-minute address. It's really wonderful. And actually, you could say that the entire purpose of our Hare Krishna movement, if you wanted to put it in a nutshell or a sutra, is simply to understand that the holy name is the Lord. That's really what our process is to receive the holy name and to understand that it is Krishna himself. And that's everybody's job ultimately. And when this understanding awakens, then naturally we want to share it with everybody else. That's part and parcel of understanding the nature of the holy name. So it is said that devas are lining up to take birth in Kali Yuga. Well, why would that be? What is so special about the process of the chanting of Hare Krishna? So if we take a look, if we look at the process of the other previous ages, Satya Yuga, the process is meditation within the heart of Lord Vishnu. And this is very difficult. This requires incredible purity and the right environment. And in fact, this is dismissed. Arjuna says that this is not possible at this time. And Srila Prabhupada would say that who is more qualified than Arjuna? And he was saying that he had no qualification. So that is not... And then ultimately, even if you're successful, then you go to Vaikuntha. And then we have Treta Yuga. It requires so much. There's so much between you and the Lord. There's the sacrificial priests. There's the Yagyashal. There's the gallons of ghee. There's so much between you and the Lord. And even in Dwapara Yuga, where the process is deity worship, still for deity worship, we require a temple, we require a pujari, we require resources, we require to follow the principles of Panchatrikaviti. So, but the Maha Mantra, the chanting of the Maha Mantra in Kali Yuga, it directly puts us in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It directly gives us the association of Krishna. That's the miracle. It gives us the association of not only Krishna, but Srimati Radharani, directly from Goloka Vrindavan. Golokare Premadan Harinam Sankirtan. So that is the wonderful nature of the holy name, is that it enables one to directly, without expense or qualification, directly associate with Krishna and Radha. And what is the result of that association? Krishna and Radha are the best association. And immediately one becomes affected. Even one has no understanding of the mantra, no qualification. Still, one is affected. So such an amazing process. One is immediately purified. And when Ramananda Roy is talking to Lord Chaitanya about who should be respected, Lord Chaitanya confirms that it is the devotee of the Lord. And the Lord Chaitanya asks, and who is the devotee? And it's explained that one who simply chants once the holy name of the Lord is a devotee of the Lord and should be offered all respects. So we should understand that nobody who takes birth in this age in Kali Yuga is an ordinary soul. Even if they're a karmi or a squirrel or a pig or a microbe, because this is a very special time. This is a time when Lord Chaitanya comes and distributes the holy names of Radha and Krishna to all the living entities, which means all the living entities in this time are meant to go to that place, Goloka Vrindavan, which is extremely rare. We've talked previously about how Krishna only comes once in a day of Brahma, once in every 1,000 Dwapara Yugas, and Mahaprabhu with the holy name only comes once in 1,000 Kali Yugas. So this is a very rare, special time. And immediately when one hears the holy name of the Maha Mantra, what is the result? One no longer has Lord Vishnu in the heart, but one has Krishna and Radharani in the heart. This is something very, very rare. So we should understand that there's nothing special about us. We should never become proud that somehow there's something unique, because every living entity is unique in this Kali Yuga. They've come to reassume their position in the spiritual world. And we understand that Brahma Samhita explains, Premanjana Charita Bhakti Valechanena. You know this Amrit Anjan? You know this ointment you get here in India? Amrit Anjan? Anjan means ointment. So Premanjan is the ointment. And where is that? Like kajal. The ladies put kajal on their eyes. So this is like kajal of prem. Premanjana trita bhakti valochanena. The eyes become the kajal of bhakti on the eyes. Santa sadaiva hridayeshu vailokayanti. The saints see within their heart, when they have some devotion, what do they see? Do they see four-armed Vishnu? Chaturbhuj? No. Lord Brahma says when devotion for Krishna awakens, which the holy name bestows, we have Yanshama Sundaram in the heart. The threefold bending form of Krishna is seen within the heart. This is a special benediction of devotees of Krishna and Radharani, which only becomes manifest by the Lord himself in the age of Kali. And the holy name is so powerful that it may be very difficult to understand now. We're in a very dark period of time. We understand that after the disappearance of the pure devotee, there's havoc and crisis. And this is seen in our disciplic succession. When Prabhupada left, so much havoc in our society, and we're still struggling and try to understand things. But this is for a very short period of time only. We have the TOVP opening in 7 years. So this is a very auspicious time, and we should see a very special uptick of our movement. So we all have to hang on until that time and not be discouraged when we have challenges, because the Mahamantra will be successful, ultimately victorious. When I was 10 years old, I was living in Toronto, Canada, and I had two brothers, one 8 years old and one 7 years old. So my parents used to take us to New York during the summer. It's about a 10-hour drive from Toronto. We go through Buffalo, Niagara Falls, and then go to New York City. And we'd stay in Manhattan for a few weeks in the summer. So when I was 10 in 1975, my father took us to Manhattan, and my mother would go shopping with my older sister, and my dad would take my brothers and I, we would just walk around. So we're in the Village. We're in Washington Square Park. And I have it's a very clear memory, even though I don't remember anything else from this time. We went to see the devotees. We saw a bunch of brahmacharis chanting madly, enthusiastically, 1975. And we thought this was the most amazing thing we'd ever seen. And in fact, we started to chant. On the way home in the car, my youngest brother, Michael, he started to chant. And we would chant what we thought was the Mahamantra. And how it goes, how we chanted it, I still remember it. Hare Krishna, Hari 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 Hare, Hari Mama, Hari Papa, Hari 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 Hare. That's what we thought. That's what we thought the Mahamantra. But it was so amazing. We thought this was the most amazing thing we'd ever seen. What was this thing? These mad young men in orange and shaved heads were singing. And then we would do it. Sometimes my youngest brother at the breakfast table at home would start going, Hare Krishna, Hare, and we'd all sing, and my father would laugh while making the toast before going to school. So there must have been some benefit to that. There must have been some benefit, all that chanting. Even in the Shastra it says in a joking manner that there's benefit. So it was only from the holy name. Somehow or other it entered the heart and it changed us. It affected us. So this is the amazing thing about the Mahamantra. It is not a material thing. Just like Vrindavan, anyone that spends some time here can personally experience that it is not in the material world. Vrindavan does not exist in the material world. So the holy name also is not a product of the material world. And if we chant, even if we struggle, sometimes we may feel some pressure. Our chanting has to be very elevated, but it's not always the case. Simply we try. Simply chant. We have to be honest with the Lord. Whatever standard we have to give what we're capable of. So we may be so distracted, and that's okay. It's just the effort to just be honest with the holy name, that this is where I'm at, and I only listen to a few mantras every round. But we just have to understand that the Lord is very forgiving. Prabhupada has a plan for us. Jai Shri Shri Gaurnitai, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram, Lalita Vishaka, Radhashama Sundar Ki Jai. So in the Brihat Bhagavatam Rita, there's a discussion by the personified Vedas and Narad Muni and different personalities, and they're talking about what is actually the most powerful process. Is it meditation on the Lord in the heart, or is it the chanting of the name of the Lord? And there's a discussion back and forth. And then ultimately, one devotee makes the case that it is the chanting of the holy name, which is the supreme process. And the evidence that he gives is that even if one is standing in front of the Lord himself, the chanting of the holy name is appropriate. Right? If Krishna is standing in front of us, then to chant Hare Krishna is appropriate. Whereas if Krishna is standing before us and we start doing meditation within, it's not appropriate. So this is the evidence given in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, that it is the actual process for the age, and that it is the most powerful process. And then it goes on to explain in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, written by Sanatana Goswami, that the gopis in the spiritual world, when they're doing their household chores and they're feeling separation from Krishna, what do? They sing the names of Krishna. Yes? Right? We accept this. This is our canon. This is our philosophy. So this means that at the highest level, the highest devotees in their highest intense ecstasy of separation do Harinam. So it is the highest thing, that is the amazing thing, is that even we're in the beginning stages, primary stages of Krishna consciousness, and what we're distributing to everyone, it is the highest practice which we will never give up. It is never to be abandoned. There will never be a stage when, isn't that good news, that we will never stop chanting Hare Krishna, ever. Is that good news? It'll never be taken from us, ever. It'll never come to an end. Forever we will be singing Krishna's name. So get used to it. You ain't got no choice, okay? It's like you don't have a choice. So it's and therefore the Bhagavatam is there's no kaitava dharma. There's no cheating, compromise. You're not given a substitute. You're given the absolute ultimate perfection. And that's what it delivers. And the Bhagavatam is just full of glorification of the holy name of the Lord. I attended a japa retreat once by Ravindra Swarup Prabhu. You can get it online. It's called Attaining Namabhas. And in that he explains that Sudanam you can only get through Krishna's mercy. That the pure chanting of the holy name is only given by Krishna. It's not by our endeavor. But he explains that Namabhas, which is a reflection or shadow of the holy name, that this actually you can get. You can achieve it by your own will. Because it is defined to be that you're endeavoring to avoid the 10 offenses. You're endeavoring to avoid the 10 offenses. And you can experience the clearing stage of the holy name. And he said that ultimately, how we understand how we can become attracted to the holy name is to understand how interesting the holy name is. Think about it. All the acharyas, all the great personalities with great brains and insights, they all found this Maha Mantra very interesting. Ravindra Swarup Prabhu was saying that he was once in an airplane lounge in Europe, and he found a book on Finnish grammar. And he said it was actually interesting. He said everything actually has some interest. Everything has something of interest in it. So we have to find what is interesting in the holy name when we chant, to see within the 16 words what is interesting when we hear it, and understand the holy name possesses everything, and try to find that and connect with that. And I found that a very nice meditation, a very powerful meditation for chanting. We have to, I find personally, my experience in Krishna consciousness is that my japa tends to be good during two circumstances. One is when things are very, very difficult for me in Krishna consciousness. If things are very austere, when I'm really forced to surrender. And you know those times where you do more than you think is fair? Where somehow or other Krishna corners you and you just go with it? And you're doing more than what's comfortable, and it's like, this is too much, but I'm just going to do it. Then I find japa kind of opens up. And also, when I put effort, when I read books or I listen to seminars or I really talk to devotees and try to really apply myself, then the japa gets affected. That's my personal experience. So it really requires some effort, because ultimately there's the holy name and then there's the material world. There's topics of the material world. That's all there really is. And for millions of lifetimes, we've been squeezing the juice out of material topics and subject matter. And it's very hard to abandon that, to give that up, because it's served us. It's been our shelter and our comfort and our nourishment for so many lifetimes. So it's a little artificial to just have the holy name. But that's really our mission. We have to keep returning and doing that. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings in Sri Godruma Bhajanopadesha, he says, Ramani jana sangha sukham chasake charame bayadam purushartha haram harinama sura arasa mata matir bhajagodruma kanana kunjavidum bhajagodruma kanana kunjavidum. He says, my dear brother, please understand that the pleasure that you get from worldly association is not at all real happiness. He says that it is sukalam vifalam. There's no happiness in it, and it has no fruit. And then he says that if one engages in worldly association, that you'll get charame bayadam. That means at the end of your life, you'll be very frightened. You'll be scared when you die. And purushartha haram. He says your goal of life, the goal of life, will be stolen from you. It'll be taken from you. So he says what to do? That mata matir. Mata is mind, and matir means intoxicated, like maddened, like you drank some wine. With what? Harinama sudaras. Harinama sudarasa mata matir. That's the drink you get drunk with. That's sudaras of Harinam. That is Bhaktivinoda. And if you do this, then you can worship Lord Chaitanya, who's shining like a beautiful moon in the groves of Godrumadweep. So it's a very nice meditation. And this Sri Godruma Bhajanopadesha of Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about how the holy name is the ultimate source of happiness, and one has to connect with that for pleasure, and that everything is temporary. Dana yovana jivana rajasukham nahi nityam anukshana nasaparam jajagramya kata sukalam vifalam bhajagodrumakanana kunjavidam. He says that dana, wealth, yovana, your youth, jivana, your life, rajasukham, kingly happiness, nahi nityam, these things are not eternal. They give misery. So give up tyaja, throw away gramya kata, right? Prajalpa, talking about material things, and just engage the tongue in chanting Hare Krishna. He's making that, he's in the beautiful song, he's encouraging us that this is the process. And then when we get Krishna's association within the chanting, what is the result? Devotional service. Devotional service. Because they say, to know, the expression, to know him is to love him, they say about some people. So that's Krishna. When we have realization of Krishna, we can't avoid but love him. He's so wonderful. When it's revealed, when we understand his just attractiveness and his nature, how kind and loving, and that he doesn't see. It's fascinating how Krishna does not see the material activities of his devotees. He just sees his devotees as his devotees with love. He doesn't consider our material activities. He's just looking. And when we're engaging in material activities, it's like Krishna's waiting. He's like the bird in the tree, just waiting for the bird who's trying to eat the fruits, Mundaka Upanishad. So Krishna's just kind of he's just waiting. But then if we turn through the process of devotional service, then he says, hey, you dummy, I've loved you the whole time. What's your problem? Here I am. It's really, the burden is on us. We've neglected the relationship. Though if we don't have a relationship with Krishna, the natural thing is to blame the Lord. Oh, it's God. God is at fault. He's got the problem. What's wrong with him? I'm sincere. So he should make an arrangement. But when we practice devotional service, then we realize that it's actually our responsibility. We are responsible for the breakdown of our relationship with God. And that's the power of Krishna consciousness. When we all got Prabhupada's books, beforehand we may have heard so much about God. But Prabhupada said something very unusual in his books. He said, actually, you are responsible for the breaking of the relationship. You turned your back on God. You have an envious mentality towards God. And if you rectify that, if you see God with a loving attitude, then everything will change in your life. And this is something we never heard before. We heard lots of blasphemy of God, criticism of God, mental speculation of God, but we never heard anybody say that it's your responsibility. You did it. You came here. You're not innocent. Because many people think, well, if God is in control, then ultimately he'll help me. But Prabhupada explained, no, you have to be proactive. Just like we all have the experience, we may have gotten in a fight with a friend. I'm sure we may have a good friend, an old friend, we get in a fight. And then sometimes, then we don't talk to them. And then we may have a change of heart and we go, look, man, I'm sorry. I kind of blew it. I wasn't coming from the right space. What I said was not right. I'm sorry. And then many times what the friend will say, you know what, man? No, it's not your fault. It's my fault. I did it. It was my fault. When you take responsibility, it changes everything. It even changes the person that you're dealing with. It's so powerful. The humility and accepting responsibility is so empowering. This is psychology and psychiatry 101, is that if we accept responsibility, it changes everything and changes everyone around us. So when we chant and we turn to the Lord, I'm so sorry, my Lord, I've neglected you for so many lifetimes, and I've turned my back on you. And being envious of your position, I've tried to compete with you to be the enjoyer. But I'm ready to stop, my Lord. I don't want to do it anymore, and I accept that I've been a fool, and I've wasted hundreds of lifetimes, and I've suffered rotting in this material world. Please, my Lord, give me a chance. Give me another chance. Please forgive me. And then everybody knows when you do this, things change. Everything changes. You see things in a different way. Krishna reveals himself to you in your heart, and everything transforms. Krishna hears those words. But if we become covered and we again go back to the old mentality of like, what's Krishna's problem? I've been trying so hard in this Hare Krishna movement. I've worked so hard, and it's like, I got nothing. It's like, what's the point? It's been just like I got nothing. But one has to again join ISKCON. We don't just join ISKCON once. We have to constantly join the Bhakta program. And then again, we have to reanalyze and go, okay, did we do something wrong? Was there a misapplication? And we again turned to the Lord and said, here's your idiot again, Krishna. I blew it again. And I'm sorry, and please give me another chance. And Krishna's like, of course, my child. Of course, because the Lord is very forgiving. In fact, in Jaiva Dharma, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says something wonderful. He says that if we're chanting inattentively, he says what the solution is of inattentive japa. And you know what he says it is? He says you go in front of the assembly of devotees and you say that, my dear devotees, I've been inattentive in my japa. I've not been listening to the holy name properly. I confess. And he says when the devotees hear this, they say to the devotee, you don't worry about this. This is not a very important thing. Very quickly, you will overcome your inattentive chanting. And by being blessed by the devotees, then the inattentive chanting is eradicated. So just as I was explaining that, I thought maybe I'll just take this opportunity. I would like to confess to the assembled devotees that my japa is very inattentive. It's really inattentive. So I ask you to please forgive me for this great insult to the holy name. What's that?
In He's going to be all right.
Hi. It's because Prabhu is from Canada, and I'm from Canada originally. I'm getting special mercy. A Prabhu disciple from Canada. Yeah, joined in Toronto, where I originally got the mercy I just lived a few kilometers from the Toronto temple. Ghosh Thakur Prabhu. Thank you very much for that. So this is the wonder of the Krishna consciousness movement, and we're still trying to understand the momentous profundity of the holy name, of what it is. What is this golden age? Who is Lord Chaitanya? What Prabhupada has given us? What is really going on? What is happening? What will happen to the world? It's such a wonderful, amazing time. And to be in Vrindavan and to chant the holy name in front of the deities is just beyond comprehension. How incredibly fortunate we are. It's just beyond comprehension. Something very, very special. And this is all a gift by His divine grace, who's giving wonderful gifts. Prabhupada was once on a walk with Guru Das, and he was trying to explain the nature of receiving the mercy of the spiritual master. And he said, just like I take a bag with $100,000 in it. And then he turned, because Guru Das was a little chubby, so he stuck his hands in Guru Das's belly, kind of surprised him. And Guru Das was like, oh. Prabhupada says, here, take it. $100,000. You take it. Prabhupada said, that's it. He goes, that's it. He was trying to give a metaphor for the mercy we're getting. He goes, I take a bag of $100,000, I give it to you. Take it. It's yours. Take the bag of $100,000. Prabhupada was using this to explain that's really the dynamic. We've just gotten a bag of $100,000 just shoved in our stomach. Here you are. You won. Here's the treasure. So if anyone would like to make a comment or ask a question or share something at this stage. Aniruddha Prabhu, Temple President of Melbourne Temple, great honor. Hare Krishna.
It's meant that devotional service begins with chanting, but we know that devotional service begins with hearing. So how do we reconcile these different statements?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, obviously, is that it's not possible to chant without hearing. They're kind of, it's like eating without tasting. You know, it touches your wet tongue and the food dissolves, and that's the process of eating. So that's how I would understand that it's kind of inseparable. It's just one phenomena. And I guess you could say that hearing, generally when we think of hearing, we think of someone else producing the sound, right? Like when you go, you need to hear more, Prabhu. Generally we think of something outside of ourselves. So in a sense, to hear, you need someone else. But to chant requires no one else. You can do that of your own volition. So it kind of begins, it starts with chanting. You make the decision to chant, and then Krishna will send things for you to hear, you know, through the devotees, through everything. So it's like that first step is where it begins. Because so hopefully that works for you.
Curious to hear what your answer.
I was thinking that when we were chanting Radha Madhava, it's so special because it was fulfilling all the 5 most potent forms of devotional service, as explained by Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion, right? When we're sitting here in Krishna Balaram Temple and we're chanting Radha Madhava, we are doing all 5 of the most potent practices of awakening devotional service, right? We're in front of Krishna Balaram, so it's worship of the deities. We're in the holy Dham, so it's being in Vrindavan. It's chanting the holy names of the Lord, right? And it's with the devotees. It's a service to the devotees. And it's in the context of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Yes, Prabhu?
When we chant Hare Krishna, sometimes it feels like we're falling into a chasm of ignorance, and it's very difficult to persevere with the chanting because it seems like it's never ending the amount of faults that we might find in ourselves. So, and as a result, it's easy to become discouraged in the work of cleansing the heart. So, how do we? What can we do to overcome that ignorance and get a taste for chanting?
Well, I hope you don't mind if I turn this question around. And, you're a devotee who's been chanting his rounds faithfully for many, many, many years. Many of your contemporaries have not. But somehow or other, don't even bring the quality into the discussion, okay? But you've been chanting your 16 rounds for a long, long time, even though you might be alone amongst your contemporaries or very isolated. So I ask you, Prabhu, how have you managed to still get up every morning and chant your rounds, been encouraged to do that for so long?
Sometimes I haven't.
Huh?
Sometimes I haven't.
Well, I'm sure it's extremely insignificant. I mean, chanting.
Yeah, chanting.
Why do you still do it?
That's a good question. Stubborn, I suppose.
But why? You have to be stubborn for something.
Well, I like the association with the devotees. I like to chant.
Can you just look at that?
I like the association of the devotees. I like to chant. I think for me, kirtan, some kirtan is essential to gain entrance into the realm of prema, bhakti. And as you mentioned, the Panchanga Bhakti. The first is the association of the devotees, and of course with the association of the devotees, then you chant. And Krishna makes himself readily and easily available in the association of the devotees when you perform Sankirtan. And you have to have a very, very hard heart indeed not to experience ecstasy in the association of the devotees chanting Hare Krishna.
So you're saying kirtan with the devotees.
Yeah, kirtan, and of course prasad is good too. They didn't feed us, we wouldn't stick around. But and that's an extension of deity worship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if we're worshipping the deity, then we're in a sacred place, and again we're with the devotees. So, but certainly, I think for myself, Sankirtan is definitely a key, an opening into the depths of prema bhakti. Not, and even when we're not even initiated, even when we're just new bhaktas. I mean, even sometimes we go on Harinam, and in the late 70s and early 80s, people would come running at the Harinam party to bash us up,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're still a bit wary But these days, what I've noticed is people come running and you think, oh, what's this guy up to? Then he jumps into the Sankirtan party and it starts through the devotees of, getting into it. So the holy name and in the association of devotees with the performance of Sankirtan, the Lord makes himself available even to the most disqualified. So, if you need a bit of juice or enthusiasm in your internal, development or growth, then Sankirtan is a good idea.
Thank you. Recommended by Aniruddha Prabhu, Temple President of Melbourne Temple. We also are graced with the presence of Jagat Guru Prabhu, Temple President of ISKCON Detroit. That's where I joined to the Hare Krishna movement in Detroit. It's funny, so many connections here to my history. So just to summarize, Aniruddha Prabhu said that that's the secret of why he's been able to chant for how many years, Prabhu? How long have you been chanting Hare Krishna? 37? So kirtan, attending the kirtan. So we should remember that that we may have exalted experiences chanting japa on a japa retreat and have esoteric insights, or we may just get our rounds done. But that's really what we're asked to do. The real devotion, the real indication of Krishna Prem is to chant your 16 rounds every day. If you just do that, if you can just stick that out, then everything will come. Prabhupada has promised us this. So don't become discouraged, even if there's inattentiveness. My inattentiveness now is finished. I've been blessed. So I can encourage you that this is also possible. But still, if there's some inattentiveness, then we've just got to maintain it. I'll just finish with this one story. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, in his Transcendental Diary, he said that he was with Prabhupada in the later days when Prabhupada was very ill, and Prabhupada woke up and had a dream. And he said that there was chanters, and then there was these non-devotee drunkards that were coming and harassing the chanters. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked, well, were the chanters affected by the non-devotees, the drunkards? Prabhupada said, no, their name is already in the book. It is impossible that they can be affected. So Prabhupada has said that those who chant Hare Krishna, your name is already in the book. It's game over, it's already done. All we have to do is just increase the size of the book and get more and more people's names in that book. For us, we have no concern. Things are very nice. So thank you for allowing me to speak and purifying myself and giving me the best present I ever got. So I'll give you an update next class, my observations of the quality of my japa after receiving the blessings. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shishi Gaur Nitai ki jai, Krishna Balaram ki jai, Radha Shama Sundar ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Tulsi ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi.
Thank you. Please, you also bless me for my